Benefits of monoclonal antibody therapy for COVID-19. A monoclonal antibody is a molecule developed in a laboratory that is designed to mimic or enhance the body's natural immune system response against an invader, such as viruses. They are created by exposing a white blood cell to a particular viral protein, which is then cloned to mass-produce antibodies to target that virus. Monoclonal antibodies targeting the S protein have the potential to prevent severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2 infection and to alleviate symptoms and limit progression to severe disease in patients with mild to moderate COVID-19, particularly in those who have not yet developed an endogenous antibody response. Monoclonal antibodies have an advantage over other types of treatment for infection because they are created to specifically target an essential part of the infectious process. Monoclonal antibodies can specifically target the COVID-19 virus because they originate in the blood of people who have recovered from COVID-19. This would potentially make them more effective than other drugs. They can be rapidly isolated and manufactured. More than 70 monoclonal antibody products for COVID-19 are now in development. Once administered, monoclonal antibodies enter the bloodstream straight away and offer immediate protection for a few weeks or months. On the other hand, vaccines take a few weeks to have an effect, but usually provide long-term protection. Hence, it is estimated that monoclonal antibodies could complement vaccines in helping to contain the pandemic. They have the potential to treat infected patients or prevent infection in all individuals, including the elderly and young children, and immunocompromised people, some of whom can't receive a vaccine, or for whom vaccines don't always work as well. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration has issued an emergency use authorization for several investigational monoclonal antibodies, discussed here. Sotrovimab was approved on May 26, 2021 for the treatment of mild to moderate COVID-19 in adults and pediatric with positive results of direct severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2 viral testing and who are at high risk for progression to severe COVID-19, including hospitalization or death. The emergency use authorization allows for sotrovimab to be distributed and administered as a 500 mg single dose intravenously by healthcare providers. The safety and effectiveness of this investigational therapy continues to be evaluated for treatment of COVID-19. Sotrovimab is not authorized for patients who are hospitalized due to COVID-19 or require oxygen therapy due to COVID-19, as it has shown no benefits in these patients. Moreover, these monoclonal antibodies may be associated with worse clinical outcomes when administered to hospitalized patients requiring high-flow oxygen or mechanical ventilation. Bamlanivimab is a neutralizing monoclonal antibody that targets the receptor binding domain of the S protein of severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2. Etesevimab is another neutralizing monoclonal antibody that binds to a different but overlapping epitope in the receptor binding domain of the coronavirus S protein. Casirivimab and imdevimab are recombinant human monoclonal antibodies that bind to non-overlapping epitopes of the S protein receptor binding domain of severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2. The two combination products, bamlanivimab plus etesevimab and casirivimab plus imdevimab, are available through Food and Drug Administration emergency use authorizations for the treatment of mild to moderate COVID-19 in non-hospitalized patients with laboratory-confirmed severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2 infection who are at high risk for progressing to severe disease and/or hospitalization. The potential risks of monoclonal antibodies, including allergic or non-allergic infusion-related reaction, are listed here. The side effects of sotrovimab and intravenous medication side effects are mentioned here. Severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2 vaccination should be deferred for more than or equal to 90 days in people who have received anti-severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2 monoclonal antibodies. This is a precautionary measure, as the antibody treatment may interfere with vaccine-induced immune responses. For people who develop COVID-19 after receiving severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2 vaccination, prior vaccination should not affect treatment decisions, including the use of and timing of treatment with monoclonal antibodies. As immunoglobulin G monoclonal antibodies, bamlanivimab plus etesivimab, casirivimab plus imdevimab, and bamlanivimab alone would be expected to cross the placenta. There are no available data on the use of these anti-severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2 monoclonal antibodies during pregnancy. However, anti-severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2 monoclonal antibodies should not be withheld from a pregnant individual with COVID-19 who has a condition that poses a high risk of progression to severe COVID-19. The patient and provider should determine that the potential benefit of the drug outweighs the potential risk.